What's up and welcome to my guitar channel. I have owned the Quad Cortex since May, and in this time I feel like I've learned a lot about what it can and what it cannot do. In this video I'm going to discuss what I like about this unit and what I don't like about this unit, so let's do it. In no particular order of importance, here are the strengths of the unit. So first is that it's fantastic quality. I've used this unit live, I've used it in rehearsals, and I've used it here at my computer recording music, doing this type of thing that I do. As soon as I got the unit, I more or less ignored all the other gear that I had, and I've even started selling some of that gear because I know that I will likely never use it. This is because it does its fucking job. It's reliable, nothing on it has broken. There is a little asterisk here that I will circle back to at the end of the video, but this thing functions as it's intended to function. If it broke, I would be shocked. Like, you know, those moments where your strap falls off your guitar when you're standing, something like that, that you don't think that it could possibly happen, and it happens. That's how surprised I would be if this unit stopped working. Number two, it sounds legit. There are three situations where I've used this unit. The first setup is through a PA, so, you know, some live sound rig or in a PA speaker or anything like that. The second is through my computer, and the third is through an actual speaker cab for a guitar. Now, my general rule is that if I'm going through a PA, I'm going to use the cab sim. If I'm going through my computer, I'm not going to use the cab sim. And of course, if I'm using a speaker, a guitar cab, then I'm not going to use the cab sim either. With the PA, of course, it needs a cab so that it can sound like a guitar. With the computer, it's more easy for me to use the cabs that are in, for example, GGD, Library, Gold Stack, Zilla, or Kali, or the Bogren packs, anything like that. I find it kind of easier to navigate those sounds, and I like having that control when I've committed to a amp sound. And when I'm using a speaker cab, of course I use the speaker cab. I don't use any amp sim because double cabbing an amp sound just makes it sound terrible. Even though the kind of majority of production of sound for a guitar comes from the speaker cab itself, sometimes you get to a venue and there's no other options other than to use the speaker cab that they've provided. So too bad. With this, you do need a power amp. So that is something that I have brought along with me on occasion when I'm like, I don't know if this venue is going to have a PA that's going to be able to do it. Better to have the redundancy of the power amp that is a separate unit than to get there and not be able to make sounds with your guitar. The point is, in none of these situations have I thought that the Quad Cortex sounded crap. Lots and lots of people rave on about guitar tone, and yes, it's important. If you bring a Fender Deluxe to a Slipknot gig, it's not going to function. However, once you've got an appropriate tone for the genre, it doesn't matter. All it needs to do is sound like a guitar and be able to be heard. Some people rave on about like, oh, you need this specific pedal with this head, with this cab, with this microphone to get the sound that you want. That's fine, but you're still then competing with drums, probably another guitarist, bass, vocals, and any other post-production or elements or keyboards or whatever when you're playing live. It doesn't particularly matter what the guitar sounds like so long as it sounds like a guitar and can be heard. And there are no situations that I've been in where I've thought that the Quad Cortex has failed to deliver on making my guitar sound like a guitar in a live situation. Number three is that it's so convenient. One of the reasons why I bought this was for convenience. This thing is the size of like maybe two laptops stacked on each other. It is tiny. With this though, you can run 4 guitars in. You could do any combination. You could do 2 vocals, 2 guitars. The setup that I'm going to eventually use with my band is 1 bass, 2 guitars, and a vocals. You can kind of do whatever you want with this. And you can have full chains. So one guitar has a delay and a phaser while the other one has some, you know, solo boost with a wire or something. Like it can do all of this stuff together. What blows my mind is that this thing is so tiny. It weighs a couple of kilos. It fits in your backpack. It's so easy. And yet people are bringing in these 30 kilogram amp heads for like an angle, which I have one. They're bringing that in, they're plugging it into a random cab, which as we've already mentioned, is a huge part of the sound. So you've got a $4,000 head that's plugged into a $200 cab. It's not going to sound great. And then you've got your pedal board with all the bells and whistles, blah, 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 blah. It just makes everything so much harder. Storage, travel, energy, stress, the option of theft. Like if I left this in my backpack, unless someone steals my backpack, which is a possibility, then they're going to have no idea that I've got expensive musical equipment in my car. As opposed to seeing a bunch of guitars and an amp or something like that. People know that that stuff is worth a lot of money and it gets stolen all the time. And all that extra effort gets you a sound that is most likely indistinguishable to the audience in front. And on top of that, 99.9% of people will not care about your gear. So you're only really doing it for yourself. To me, it just makes sense. It's simple, it sounds great, and it's so easy. Number 4 is the UI is absolutely killer. It's not as easy as your phone or your tablet or something like this, but it's damn close. It's really intuitive. It's really easy to get used to, really easy to kind of navigate and do what you need to do with it. But, and it's mostly clear, I will circle back to this because there are some things that aren't that intuitive that I'd like to be changed, but this is just a personal preference. In saying that, it is not as easy as an amp head. When you've got an amp head like my Engel that has a dial that says treble, you turn it down, you've got no treble. You turn it up, you've got loads of treble. It can't get simpler than that. But the fact that this thing can do so much makes it so easy to justify why it's slightly more complicated than that, but still really, really simple and really, really practical. There is a video where I've gone into detail on what I don't like about the Kemper, and the UI on the Kemper is absolutely horrific. But considering the capabilities of this unit, it is so much easier than the Kemper. And I can't comment on whether it's easier than the Axe FX or the Helix because I don't have those units. So I think it's obvious that I'm fangirling about this product at this point in time, and I've had the thing for 6 months. I remember pulling it out at a gig a couple of months ago and just like laughing to myself at how simple my setup is. It's so insane. And it's for the reasons that I've just listed that I have absolutely no trouble recommending it whatsoever. I think it is fantastic value for money, and the convenience and the sound and everything that you're getting for it is great. However, that doesn't mean that it's perfect, and we're going to go through the things that I'm not a massive fan of. So number 1 on the list of the things that I'm not such a fan of with this unit is the effects section. Whilst you can easily get a delay, a reverb, a phase, a chorus, whatever, most standard effects that you would need for guitar plus some non-standard ones, it doesn't mean that you're going to get a really, really high quality version of this sound. Kind of hard to explain this without giving it the time to give a full breakdown, doing back-to-back comparisons and stuff like this. Fortunately though, I've already done this for you in 2 videos, which I will link in the description below plus up here, I think. In those videos, it becomes very clear very quickly how much more depth and breadth you get out of owning a dedicated effects unit rather than a quad Cortex. It is really no contest. But in defense of this unit, again, this is not trying to promise itself as being the perfect replication of everything. It's trying to do the job. And once again, it's like, you want a delay, this has many options for delays. It doesn't have endless options for delays. It doesn't have the most amazing options for delays, but you can still make a delay sound out of it. Any time, like say you're going to a studio or something and you want a very specific delay sound, either you hire a pedal for that day, the studio may already have that pedal for the day, maybe there's a plugin that they're going to use in the system to make that delay. There's loads of other options that you can use, but I can most definitely make do with what it offers. And in situations that I need more, I can find other ways to make that work. The only situation that I see would really trip me up on this is if I write something that absolutely requires a very specific sound to be replicated. However, in that case, I'm probably going to buy a dedicated unit just for that song anyway. So once again, it's not really much lost. Number 2 is performance issues. There was a video I did a while ago where I was trying to stack multiple delays and do all these fun things, and the options just ran out. Now, obviously, this is just like a computer issue. They can't make this unit also a supercomputer so it can handle anything that you can throw at it. What it's required to do is never let the processing that it needs to do affect the playback speed. So if you've got something that's going to play back in 50 milliseconds, that's no good for a live situation, and this unit needs to be able to play live. So it makes sure that there's always way too many resources available. Once again, I just kind of want a bit more balls to back it up, maybe in the V2 or something that, we'll see what happens. Number 3 is the user interface and navigation. Now, I did say that the UI is killer, but it doesn't mean it's free from issues. And I mean, every person that uses Samsung sees an iPhone and sees functions and features in that it's like, oh, that would be nice to have easier access to whatever that is. And vice versa with the iPhone. No system is perfect, and for the quad Cortex, there were some things that confused the crap out of me, like in this video here. It sounds really silly, but sometimes navigating to certain areas can be so counterintuitive. Going to like the fundamental settings of the unit, it's like those types of things I feel should be pretty easy to access, and I always kind of find myself having to figure out where it is every time I try and go into it. It's not something that I do very often, so it's not something to complain about, but it's like, it feels like an unintuitive way to go about it. And it's funny because on a unit like this, it does feel so intuitive so much of the time. And like, I get it. It's, you don't need to go to the settings very often. It doesn't need to be the most easy thing. It's like, if I do it once every 6 months, I can afford to spend a minute trying to figure it out. It's fine. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be like tucked away under a rug somewhere. And I'm going to throw like a 3.1 in there. So sometimes when you're trying to shoot out like multiple different delays or multiple different amp heads or something like that, it can be confusing to know exactly which one is on or off and stuff like this. This little video here kind of shows you what you go through, but I always find myself, if I'm ever shooting out something, I always find it complicated. So that brings me to the end of the list of the things that I don't like, but there is one thing that I would really like to see. This has no USB functionality, so you can plug it in and it acts as an audio interface, which is fantastic. I really love that that is an option with this unit, but I would really like to have like an app on my computer where I can just update everything. I plug it in and it all gets updated automatically very easily. The way that I have to do it with this unit, if I want to put in any impulse responses, so like say I get the perfect impulse response through my GGD setup, blah, 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 I can export that. And if I want to put that into my quad Cortex, I have to log into my account online, upload it there, and then sign into the Wi-Fi on my quad Cortex. And it just seems like it's a kind of unnecessarily painful step to go through. Maybe it sounds like I'm complaining, but it's like, why wouldn't it have USB functionality? Why wouldn't it have an app where I can kind of control and organize easily everything on there? That is then uploaded later on. So all I have to do, I can be anywhere in the world, jump into a new computer, and I can access my account and all my information's up to date, making sure that my quad Cortex stays where I want it to stay. This thing seems like it should be simple, but it's not an option, and I would like to see that integrated. There were two things that I'd said that I'd circle back to. One was the user interface, which we've already covered. The second is the part that broke. This is why it's an asterisk. It's because it's involving the carry case. So the part that broke is the handle, right? Now, that is, to me, horrible. One thing that I love about the quad Cortex is they've really gone to a lot of effort to make sure that everything that you physically interact with on this unit feels like it's good quality. The handle on the carry case, I went out and got the official carry case because I wanted the quality that came with it. I wanted to know that, you know, if I needed to resell this, or, you know, if I was using this for 10 years, that I would be comfortable with it. You know, maybe it's imperfect, maybe it hasn't got extra space or something that I might like, but the official carry case is going to be the best experience that I get as an end user. And then this breaks. It first started with a little split, and then within 1 or 2 times of holding it, it was broken all the way in between. And now it just kind of feels crappy to hold. I just really can't understand why they've chosen to use a material that's going to be brittle like this. You know, there are so many options, and they've just ended up choosing a shit one. I am contacting Neural DSP about getting a replacement for this or something, but I have to mention it because it's not like I've been mistreating this thing at all. This is something that is a design flaw. So that's it. There's things that I love about this unit, and there's things that I don't love about this. I still highly recommend this product because the balance of price versus convenience versus quality is insane. But I would really like to know, what's your experience with this unit or with a unit that is like this? Please let me know in the comments below, and I'll get to them as soon as I possibly can. Anyway, that's it for me, and I will see you next time for more stuff about music. Bye-bye.